So in this case, we are going to consider our quadratic equations. Remember, we managed to work with the completing of the square method, how to solve quadratic equations. So we are going to proceed with the factorization method, the use of the quadratic formula. So these ones are some of the questions that we just need like a recap of what we had in our grade 10 mathematics. Considering the factorization, the basics, there we're just going to deal with the basics, as you can see. So you're given, I'm not going to waste much time. Like I said, this is recap of our grade 10. So A, we are given to solve this equation, x squared minus 5x is equal to 6. Remember, when given a quadratic equation, it is best that we do factorize that. But first of all, it must be in the format of ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0 like this, where one side of the equation is equal to 0. So you do not factorize here to say x is common between these two. So I'm going to factor out x and have x minus 5 is equal to 6. So x is equal to 6 or x minus 5 is equal to 6. No. We must have the 0 concept. One side must be equal to 0. So we must take the 6 to the other side of the equation. It becomes a negative. So that's x squared minus 5x minus 6 is equal to 0. So by factorization method, these are the basics of your grade 10. You worked with the factorization method where you can factorize. As you can see, the coefficient of x squared is 1. So we can simply have our two brackets like this equal to 0. That's x and x to give us the x squared. Then remember, you're supposed to focus with the constant. We need the products, two terms, two numbers, that when you multiply these two numbers, you get a minus 6. But add those numbers, you must get a minus 5 when you add the numbers. But first thing, multiply the numbers, you get a negative 6. Which numbers can we use? We need the products of what? Of negative 6, two numbers. We can use a negative 6 and a 1. We can use a positive 6 and a negative 1. It's a trial and error method. Factorization is a trial and error. We can use minus 3 and 2. We can use 3 and minus 2. All these, when we multiply, we are going to get a negative 6. But which of these combinations that when we add, we must get a negative 5 when we add? If we add these two, we are going to get a 1. If we add these two, we are going to get a minus 1. If we add these two, we are going to get a 5. Here, we are going to get a minus 5. If we add minus 6 plus 1, if you add, you get a 5. So it's a trial and error. List the factors down. After listing those factors, you can see, okay, this is exactly what I need. With the minus 6 and the plus 1. So you're going to have minus 6 here, plus 1 like this. So one of these brackets must be equal to 0. This is called the 0 concept. The 0 concept. The 0 concept allows us to equate to 0 any bracket as long there are two being multiplied like this. A must be equal to 0 or B must be equal to 0. So this is what we have. So you take this, one of these brackets must be equal to 0. X minus 6 must be equal to plus 1. Values of x from there. First, so x is equal to comes a negative there. So x can also be equal to a minus 1. There will be two solutions, two values of x, two roots. These are the solutions of x, values of x. So that is what we have, guys. So as you can see, like I say, this is just a recap of our grade 10. As we had our grade 10 mathematics, we had equations like these ones that you used to solve your normal quadratic equation. X squared is equal to x. On B, we are given x squared is to 0. Do not divide by x. Take it to the other side of the equation. So it is going to be x. Tempted to just divide by x since x is common. So I'm going to divide this x is equal to 1. No, this is wrong. We are supposed to be this way. Therefore, you can say, okay, I can factor out x is common between these two terms. So I can fix that's x. Minus 1 divided by x, this x and x is going to will give us what? A -1. That's equal to 0. Like I said, from the 0 concept, one of these must be equal to 0, or x minus 1 must be equal to 0. That is what it means there. Either one of these, x minus 1 to be equal to 0. What does it mean? Transpose the minus 1 to the other side of the equation, which is x, it will be equal to 1. So these are the solutions. X is equal to 0, or x is equal to 1. From this equation, these are the values of x which will satisfy this equation. As to say these two are equal, it's either our x is at 0 or our x is at what? At 1. Do not divide like see. We can see that we have got minus 13x is equal to 12. So you can take the 12 to the other side. Like I said, 1 equal to 0. One of the given sides. So that's minus x side gives us a negative. So that's a negative 12. Avoid having that as a negative. Let's have x squared. So we can simply divide by -1 each and every term by negative. -1, negative by -1. That's a 0. Remember, 0 divided by any number is a 0. This is where you are. X squared is equal to 0. That's x here, x here. What? The constant term, the constant two terms. When you a positive 13, which is it 6 and 2? How many numbers that you can put in a -3? But there's only one part when you, which is on 12 and 1 here, only this. 12 times 1, that's a 12. But if we add 12 and a +1, so of these, we can have the value of x, 12, or side will give us what? A -1. So these are the possible values of x that we could take equation by simply. So we're going to have deeper questions in our next class about even the coefficient of x squared cannot be a 1, no matter the way that you try. There we are given x minus be equal to 0. So let's translate of the equation. Minus, oh, that's positive. We can see that the coefficient of x squared is not 1. That 4 is going to give us what? By 4 divided by 4, which is 8. Factorization can be done because the coefficient of x brackets is going to have x and x. Let's focus on the constant. Remember our constant term. That is numbers to get +8. But when you add these two, you see there is a -9. The middle term is a negative. So it is best that you just do work with the negative values. The numbers that will give you a -9 when you add. Yes, it's true that the 8, it's positive. You can work with 8 and 1. But when you add, you're going to get a +9. So -9. -8 and -1. If we multiply here, we're going to get +8. If we multiply, we get a +8. If we add here, -8 plus exactly what we want. Multiply, we get 8. We add, we get a -9, the middle term. So these are the numbers, -8, -1. So one bracket, -8, another. Truly, they are being multiplied together. It means we can equate each side of the equation, become what? -1 to the other side of the equation will be a +1. 0 plus 1, that's a 1. 0 plus 8, 8, and 1. So factorization method, the basics of it, working with the basics actually of the factorization, no matter the way that you're going to have there, is given as 1, because you manage to divide by the coefficient that is being given. You can -3, that's equal to 14. Let's expand our brackets by x. The first bracket, remember the FOIL method. So let's work with x. X times x, that is going to give us x there. That is x times 3, which is going to give us 3x. We are done with x. We multiplied everything in the second bracket, everything again in that second bracket. So that's -2 multiplies x. -2 times x, that's -2x. We do the same thing. The -2 multiplies the 3. -2 times negative. That's equal to 14. Why are we expanding? It is because of this 14 that we are given here. We cannot equate this bracket to say x product. If it was like this, if there was a 0 here, guys, in place of 14, there was a 0 there. There was no need for you to expand. You're going from the x, 3 must be equal to 0. Once there is another number there, it does not work. It only works for the 0 product. It's called what? The 0 product must be equal to 0. Not to a certain number. If there is a certain number, no, expand the brackets. After that, that is where now you can collect this 14 to the other side of the equation so that you have what? The 0. All right? So that is what we have. 3x minus 2x. That's 3 minus 2, which is 1. So that's 1. A negative. If you take it to the other side there, it gives us a negative. So that's -6 minus what? That's a -20 there, which is equal to 0. -6 minus 14. That's a -20. So meaning to say, we have something that can be factorized are the factors of -20, the products of -20. But if we add, we must get the middle term, which is what? The middle number that is there, which is 1, the equivalent of x. right? Let's just have x here. Which two numbers can we use? The product of negative 20, products, negative 20. But when we add, we must get a positive 1. A positive 1. It means we must have negative positive there. And negative 1, is it 10? And a negative 2, is it a negative 10 and a minus 4? All these, if you multiply them, they will give you a minus 20. Like I said, it's a trial and error. If you do not these answers directly, list them down. The factors of what? Negative 20. The products, two numbers that you multiply to get a minus 20. List them down. After listing this down, add each way to get a positive 1. When you add, you're going to see that it was going to happen between what? 5 and minus 4 here. Between 5 and minus 4. So that's equal to 0. With these guys, we can solve for x because one of these brackets is equal to 0. So 5 to the other side of the equation will give us what? A minus 5. So x is equal to, if you can even write that stage, x plus 5 is equal to 0 so that you can properly solve for x. The minus 4, which is a 4. So x is going to give us a negative 5 or a positive of brackets. Was important because of the other number that we are given. It was not a 0 that we are given. So it is useful for us to expand, then collect like terms, simplifying to have that 0 concept. If there's 0 here, there was no need. So it is the same thing as what we have on question F. On F, there we have, right? What are they equal to? A certain number. The moment that it is here, expand the brackets first. So just like what we had in the previous case, the first bracket, 2x, expands the other bracket. So it's 2x times 3, 2x times 3x. We do the same thing. 2x multiplies the minus x there. So it's 2 times a minus with a 2x. We move on to the positive one. So that's 1 times 3, which is 3. 1 times minus x, 1 times minus x, which is minus x. That's equal to 6, as we have this one. So this is what we are going to have at the end. So in this case, we are going to, this is going to give us minus 2x squared. We do not have any like terms, so that's minus 2x squared. That's here is going to be 1 here, so that's 6 minus 1, which is 5. So 6 minus 1, that's 5. So we're going to have it, and that's equal to 6. From the 0 concept, you're supposed to take the 6 to the other side of the equation so that it will be a negative plus 5x. 3 minus a 6 on the other side, it will be a negative 6. So that is, so if you check in this question, it is actually impossible for us to factor out the negative 2 or 2 here. 5 divided by 2, look, minus 3 divided. So it is impossible for us to divide by this 2, but we can just avoid working with the negative by dealing with a negative on the coefficient of what? Of x squared. Try to do that negative. Negative, that was going to give us a positive 2x squared plus and minus. That's minus 5 is equal to 0 divided by negative 1. That's a 0 there. So using your factorization method, you're going to factorize, which we are going to actually consider in another class, depending with the methods that we are going to have in that class. But for now, I'm just going to use the method that you have been using before, that you have been taught by your teacher in how to factorize these quadratic expressions of this nature. But like I said, you're going to have a different class that is specifically on factorization of such type of quadratic expressions. So I'm just going to try to explain other methods there. If you understand 1 or 2 from there, then that'll be fine. All right. But for this one, using the method that I work with, I can simply multiply the first term to the last term. I multiply these two. So if I multiply this, I'm going to have 6x squared. 2x squared times 3. First and last term. I'm going to get 6x squared. Then I'm going to look for 2 terms, just like what I had before. 2 products. 2 factors that we multiply, we get this 6x squared. But when it's supposed to be the middle term as it is, this one, the minus 5x as it is like this. But if you multiply the 2 terms, you must get 6x squared. Which 2 terms? As we can see, the middle term there, it's a negative. But what we are multiplying, it's a positive. So you can consider negative values. Right? If you want x minus 3x and 2, we are supposed to use the x this time because we are considering the whole of the middle term. It's a different part from the previous case where I said the first, the coefficient of x squared there, where it was a 1. This one is not a 1. So when we add, we are going to obtain minus 5x. If we add here, if we add here, if we add here, if we add, where are we going to have a minus 5x? That's 3 and minus 2, that's a minus 5. So we are going to replace them into the middle term, these terms as they are. We replace them into, that's where you're going to replace them. So we're going to replace them as they are, these 2 terms. Minus 3 x and 2x. Just for the order, this is 2. So I'm just going to start with this one, which is a 2. This is 3 at the end. So I'm just going to end with this one with a minus 3. So that's minus 3x. You replace them into replace them. All right. So that is what we have there. The plus 3 at the end, just rewrite as it is. We only replaced into the middle term. Why doing so? So that we obtain 4 terms, which we can group into 2. As we can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So we can group is common from the 2. What is common between these two? 2x squared and 2x. What is common? 2x squared divided by 2x, that's x. Minus 2x divided by 2x, that is and 2x, and negative 1. We are supposed to have the same bracket of x minus 1 from these two terms that obtain exactly x minus 1. Are we going to factor out a plus 3 or are we going to factor out a minus 3? So that we get exactly x minus 1. That's a plus. Plus and minus, that's a minus. We are supposed to have exactly what is in that bracket. So you have to choose the sign there wisely. So that's a minus 3. So minus, minus, that's a positive x. That's a minus. So it's going to be minus 1. 3 and 3 is going to 2 to 0. As the two brackets are the same, the bracket of x minus 1 and this bracket of x minus 1, as we can see, that common bracket, this one. Because it's common, guys. So we can factor it out. It's a common bracket, remember? So you can take it out. Take the bracket of x minus 1 out. What about here? Minus 3. You put that in, you have a bracket. So this is equal to what? To 0. Are you seeing that? We are obtaining 2 brackets at the end. So from here, guys, from these 2 brackets, I don't know which method I'm going to use there. There are different, so many ways of how to factorize. Like I said, we're going to talk about those ways so that you choose which one that you can work with. But do your factorization in as much as you can. After you can have this one, starting with this one, ending with this one. That one does not affect, but they must be the same. X minus 1, 2x minus 3. So one of these brackets is going to be equal to what? Minus 1 to the other side will give us a positive 1. Or x is going to be what? Equal to 0. You take it to the other side, you divide by 2 like this. So x to 3 over 2 also. Or you can write this as 1.5. You can write this as 1 comma value from this needed first to expand our brackets. As I said, we can have our expansion of the brackets as we had from our grade 10. Expansion of brackets was there. After expanding of the brackets, you factorize if the factorization is possible. Also, here sense that you can also, it's a direct question that we are given the x again, because there's a number there which is 2. We cannot equate these brackets to 2. We have to expand. So by distributing this here, x into the whole bracket, which is going to give us minus 1. So we can take the 2 to the x squared and negative 2. X squared is 1, as we can say, direct as it is equal to x. Focusing with the products as usual, they must give you a negative. These are the products. But which add these 2 if we add? So these are the 1. So that's it, guys. Each bracket 0 or the bracket, we're going to have our minus 2. On the other side is equal to 2. Give us what? A minus 1, or x is in B. Consider that, where you can see that it is another type of an equation, which quadratic equation. X squared minus of 2 squares, a minus b into a plus b is what? 4 squared. This is same to so like this. Where you can properly see this is going to have this as a minus b, as we have here a minus into 1 to 0. So solved at the end, if we take positive 4. The side of the equation will be a minus 4. That's it. X squared here, we do not have 2 terms. There we have x squared, and other, we can simply take the constant side of the equation, it will be a positive 16. So to square root plus or minus 4. X is 4 that way. You can also have it that way. You can use a different, like the format that you already give the x squared, which is equal to what? To 9. If it's equal to what? What is the square root of 9? Plus or minus, where it is necessary. Because sometimes difference of 2 squares is impossible for you to have it. Like when you have squared, take the minus 6 to the other side. The minus 6 to the other side, it becomes what? A positive. The root of any number is what? Plus or minus. So it will be plus or minus the square root of 6. We cannot determine the square root of whatever that you are given. You round off to 2 decimal places. But working with the 7 on k there, x squared minus 7 is equal to 7. Introduce the square root, the square root of 7. You can have it that way. Then on 7, which is equal to a 0 like this one. The moment we try to take this to the other side, it was going to be a negative, where we are going to have x square root. Can we determine this square root of a negative number then? We cannot have the square root of 7. We cannot obtain the square root of a negative number. So that one, it is a non-real. We cannot have a solution there. We cannot even simplify. These ones can be simplified. If they wanted to two decimal places, you can even simplify this to two decimal places. But this one cannot be simplified. We can't simplify the square root of a negative number. So means say the solutions there are not real, non-real. These are non-real solutions. So we're going to continue with our factorization method. Like I said, solving these quadratic equations by factorization method with the different ways that we can have methods on our factorization. So just also try to learn as much methods and pick out an easier method that you can actually have, because factorization is also part of your syllabus, and also solving using the quadratic formula, part of your syllabus, as we had our completing of the square method. All these, they are required. The basics of these equations are supposed to be known in your syllabus. Till we meet again.